Like all good technology, every VR headset serves a purpose. The Vive and Rift made VR more mainstream. The Quest lineup pushed VR into even more people's hands. And the Vive Pro 2 is great comedic relief. But what's the purpose behind the Varjo Aero? On a spec sheet, it's an easy win. Eye tracking that adjusts the lenses uniquely to you, a higher resolution than even the Beyond, and now a price tag that's competitive with it. On paper, this is the best headset that you can buy right now, but you really shouldn't. To understand why I say this, we need to talk about Varjo as a company and the development of the Aero itself. I'm not trying to gatekeep by saying that this headset isn't for you. The story behind it explains everything. Varjo works a little differently than Vive, Valve, or Meta. Unlike them, they specialize in enterprise headsets rather than consumer hardware. Their gear is trusted by the big boys like automakers designing new models, architectural firms showing their vision to a new client, and oddly enough, professional pilots. Varjo headsets are so trusted in the industry that the European Union approved them to be used for virtual flight training hours that count towards your certification. What a flex, and with a price tag to match. Their XR3 costs over $6,000 and requires a yearly subscription that costs more than the Aero itself. Needless to say, that is a whole lot cheaper than a Boeing to practice in. For an enterprise customer, the cost of a Varjo headset is almost immediately saving them money. If they're trusted by all of these professionals, it would probably be alright for your VR chat femboy movie night, right? Well, here's where it gets a little complicated. To answer that question, we have to talk quick about how the Aero came to be. One day, probably at a really boring board meeting, Varjo decided to dip their toes into the consumer VR market. They took a look at their lineup and realized, holy shit, our headsets are way too expensive for the average VR chat degenerate. So Varjo had to look for a way to cut costs. That $6,500 XR3 is packed with some juicy but outright unnecessary tech, at least for most consumers. So they yoinked out those Gucci extras, like all of the pass-through cameras and sensors, along with 2 extra focus displays that gave the XR3 insanely high resolution directly in the center of your vision, as well as thankfully getting rid of that yearly subscription fee. And the result was the Aero. It's the same head strap, same main displays, and even the same software as the XR3. And I mean, that sounds awesome. Enterprise-grade hardware and software for a fraction of the price. But even with the $1,000 price cut, there's some hidden costs that you need to consider. Unlike your Quest 2, this headset doesn't come with speakers. It doesn't come with a microphone. It doesn't even come with controllers or base stations to track it, which are a hefty price on their own. But let's face it, if you're honestly considering a Varjo Aero, chances are you're already knee-deep into VR and you already have base stations and controllers. But I'll just tell you, the problem with the Aero runs a lot deeper than just a price tag. Remember how Varjo is mainly enterprise? Well, it shows, and in a really bad way. Those enterprise customers from earlier don't care about speakers. They don't care about being able to communicate with their fellow anime girls in VR chat, and they especially don't care about being comfortable for long play sessions or laying down. This head strap flat out sucks. It just sucks. My bald head is the most common head shape, and this head strap is still only comfortable for at most an hour. By the end of that hour, you start feeling pressure points on your cheeks and forehead. And before you say it's user error, I have made every possible adjustment to give it the best chance. Even with my short hair, these small adjustment knobs here are really happy to grab my hair and rip it out. The only solution for me was to buy a comfort kit from Studioform Creative. Seriously, props to Studioform. I'm not sponsored by them, but I absolutely would love to be. No matter what headset you have, these are a huge comfort upgrade for $40, and they fit pretty much every headset out there with a solid head strap. Or you could be like my buddy Zhao and tape a bunch of bubble wrap and fabric to the headset in an attempt to make it more comfortable. Now let me remind you, when this came out, it was $2,000. And now we have to talk about the setup experience. Once the price dropped, about 10 people close to me got Aeros. For me, all I had to do was install Varjo Base and plug in the headset. But that wasn't the case for most of the members in my community. Out of the 10 people who decided to get them, 9 of them had issues. And these aren't minor problems either. One had to get a replacement from Varjo because the first one she received wouldn't connect to her PC and had dead pixels. Another one had stuck lenses, and literally everybody else had issues with floaty tracking because of the way that Varjo's jank software installs. Like new Vives, your Varjo headset isn't natively supported by Steam VR the same way that an Index, an OG Vive, or even a Beyond would be. In order for Steam VR to understand what your Aero is saying, there's a translation layer. And more often than not, in my experience, this is a problem. That's why my Vive Pro 2 doesn't work.
Poorly made software can absolutely destroy your experience no matter how pretty the headset is.
Here's the issue. Varjo Base by default doesn't recognize your CPU properly, whether it's AMD or Intel. So when your Aero is telling your computer all of this data, it isn't translating the information fast enough for SteamVR. It's a simple install problem, but it has massive consequences.
Not only does it make your brand new $1,000 headset seem like a janky piece of garbage, but it can make you very sick. People in my community with thousands of hours in VR got so sick that they had to take the headset off, including myself. That just isn't a great first impression.
Even if I felt like lying and cut my numbers in half, around 45% of people close to me had issues ranging from inexcusable software bugs to flat-out hardware faults, fresh out of the box. And you can't blame their PC setups either. Most of them are running 3080s and 4090s, far above Varjo's recommended specs.
Oh, and did I mention that the Aero just doesn't work with AMD GPUs?
Even a relatively unheard of company like DPVR has better out-of-the-box software. If I were Varjo, I'd be embarrassed.
Out of all of the people in my circle who got one, most of them are understandably returning theirs. But I'm not, and once you see my reasoning, you'll understand exactly why I say this headset isn't for you.
These visuals are amazing. The only thing restricting this headset is my 2-year-old eye prescription. You can see every little graphical flaw in a game, something that most headsets would mask with blurry Fresnel optics or compression. If you've ever taken a photo in VR chat and then looked at it on your monitor, that's just what the Aero looks like all the time. I put this headset on my dad. He is someone with zero interest in VR, he has been a mechanic pretty much his entire life, and he's the furthest thing away from what I would call a gamer. He was absolutely enthralled.
That is nuts. Are those fish?
Yeah.
What is that? Those fish.
It was enough to ignite at least a little bit of curiosity about VR in someone who otherwise wasn't interested. I love you, Dad.
That looks sick.
But here's the kicker. You know how a song sounds different when you listen to it in your car compared to your phone? Color works much the same way.
Look at this pink. On your screen, it looks like this, but on my color-balanced monitor, it probably looks like this. Some headsets really like to change colors, oversaturating them to make things appear more vibrant and lively, in order to give you a more engaging experience. It's the same way that cheap Skull Candy headphones crank the bass up to 11. But when I'm making something for an audience of people to enjoy on all kinds of screens, I have to make sure that it isn't going to be oversaturated for you.
The Aero, having its roots in the enterprise segment, is the only color-accurate headset that I know of on the market. A Quest 2 on Link tends to wash out colors, and the Vive Pro 2 saturates colors to the point that when it's time for me to edit, it looks nothing like when I recorded it. My only complaint about the visuals is the very limited FOV. In FPS games, it feels like you're running around with a traffic cone on your head.
I'll sum it up like this. The Aero is like bringing a beautifully engraved longsword to a dogfight.
No matter how pretty it is, for most of you, it's just the wrong tool for the job.
No matter how much you hate Meta, they are absolutely killing it with the Quest 3. It is such a good value that I honestly can't recommend anything else, even the Beyond. If you're coming from an Index or a Vive, the Quest 3 will make you even happier than an Aero would. I promise you.
The Quest 3 is built from the ground up to be great for consumers, and it's such a home run in all aspects that matter, like weight, clarity, and price point, that even I'm having a hard time holding myself back from buying one.
Really though, VR headsets are such a personal preference thing. I mean, this thing has to sit on your face. But I need you to think for a second. Do you really need to upgrade? Is your headset actually stopping you from doing the things that you enjoy doing in VR?
This might come as a shocker, but I use the Aero and the Quest 2 interchangeably. And to be honest, I don't really miss the Aero when I'm in the middle of just hanging out playing games. I simply adore the Quest 2. I know a lot of you are tired of hearing this, but unless your headset is broken, you really should wait.
I don't like going into speculation in my videos for a multitude of reasons, but there's enough knowledge in the wild about Valve's newest headset, Deckard, for me to say something about it. It's basically confirmed that it's going to be everything great about an Aero or a Beyond, with a Steam Deck slapped right on the back of it, and that is worth waiting for. Start saving.
But you know what you don't have to wait for?
A free VR headset.
Yeah, baby! Recently, the channel has hit a bit of a boom, and I'm incredibly thankful. To celebrate, I'm launching merch on my website, bonelesssucks.com. Use promo code FUCK for 10% off.
I'm not even kidding.
Along with doing a giveaway for my review model DPVR E4, I'll be giving away 2 copies of Standable. All you have to do is be subscribed. If you're a member of the Patreon or order merch, you'll also get bonus entries for every $1 that you spend. Just send me those order confirmations so that I can verify. Entries end October 31st, 10 p.m. CST. Good luck, homie. Speaking of Patreon, I want to give a warm welcome to King Jimu, Lanhulinger Fox, Emax, Tenchi K, and Vandal. Thank you for joining me on this journey and helping support my bad habits. If you watched this far, comment Viva la Mexico so I can personally thank you. Have a good one.